First and foremost, may I humbly greet you all a good day. I am Crystal Ann Biakino.
I am Saimariel de la Cruz.
I am Erica Baltasar.
And I am Wendy Managula.
And we are the Zombies! Ayan, alright. So, the topic that is assigned to us is plant biology. And these are the topics that we will be covering. So first, the introduction or how plants became the heartbeat of life. Then second is energy for life, wherein photosynthesis will serve as the engine of the biosphere. Next will be the student misconceptions and difficulties in teaching plants, plant blindness, recommendations, and lastly, the conclusion. So let's get right into it. Okay, so now let us define what plant biology is all about. So, plant biology, also known as botany, is the branch of biology that focuses on the structure, function, classification, growth, development, reproduction, and ecology of plants. So it comprises of several related fields, such as plant anatomy and morphology. It is a study of the structure and forms of a plant from the roots, the stem, the leaves, flowers, and seeds, and how these function and work together, which makes up the plant. Next is the plant physiology. So it is the study of the biological processes or how a plant functions, like photosynthesis. And next is plant genetics and molecular biology. So it studies or it explains how traits and DNA are passed or inherited. Next is plant ecology. It is the study of how plants interact with the environment, such as the biotic and abiotic factors, and through this we will be able to understand how the ecosystem works and how to conserve it. Next is plant taxonomy and systematic. So it is where we identify, name, and classify different plants based on their similarities and differences, and through this we are able to organize the plant kingdom scientifically. Next is plant evolution and diversity. So it explains how plants change and adapt over time, and it explains the variety of plants that we see today. And lastly, plant biotechnology. So this is the utilization of science and technology on plants to create improved food, medicine, and the environment. Okay, so these are the core points that we have extracted from the reference material that was provided by you, Ma'am Naila. So first is photosynthesis as a fundamental life process enabling life on Earth. And without green plants, the Earth will be lifeless, according to King in 1997. So in the first statement, it is a fact actually. So photosynthesis is a fundamental biological process through which plants utilize solar energy or sunlight alongside with carbon dioxide and water to produce their own food, like glucose and oxygen. So without green plants, the Earth will be lifeless. So again, it is also a fact, it is true. Because it is also highlighted or mentioned in terms of biblical context. In the book of Genesis, vegetation was created on day 3, whereas humans and animals were created on day 6. And if we were to look in a more scientific perspective, long ago, the Earth was uninhabitable because it was encapsulated by an oxygen-reducing atmosphere, meaning that the atmosphere has no oxygen, or it lacks oxygen, and is mostly composed of carbon dioxide, nitrogen, water vapor, and methane. So because of that, organisms are unable to live. But tiny green organisms began to proliferate. They photosynthesize, therefore making oxygen, and this is where oxygen became abundant in Earth. And over time, plants evolved, so they produce oxygen, and they also serve as habitats. This also serves as our source of food and shelter. I mean, habitat. Ganun. So, yeah, so this goes to show that we humans and also animals are reliant to plants, and without these, we are unable to live today. And lastly, Big Ideas approach emphasizes understanding interconnected biological systems according to Harlan and others in 2015. So, Big Ideas approach is basically intertwining or relating different biological concepts instead of learning one or isolating one idea. So, for example, plants, animals, and microorganisms work hand in hand. They coexist making an ecosystem where there is nutrient cycling and there is a flow of energy. So, next. We can also, to easily understand more, let's delve in the ecological perspective of plant biology. So, based on this diagram, this is the food web. So, as you can see, plants are the producers, or they are autotrophic. Auto meaning they automatically make their own food from solar energy through processing it chemically, and then it will be consumed by primary consumers, then secondary, then tertiary, and so on and so forth. So this goes to show how important are plants in terms of the food web. And next, in the ecological perspective, almost 50% of anthropogenic carbon dioxide, meaning carbon dioxide that came from man-made structures like from industry, carbon emissions, and the like, are absorbed by the forests and oceans. So this goes to show that without plants, carbon dioxide will be a lot or highly concentrated and therefore making it uninhabitable. And next is the biotechnological relevance. So of course, we use plants for genetic engineering, for example, the BT corn. This makes it pest resistant. And farming means utilizing plants to create substances that can be used as pharmaceuticals. That's why that's the spelling. And biofuels, which are a much better alternative than fossil fuels. And lastly, educational perspective, which is where plant awareness disparity comes in. So plant awareness disparity is formerly known as the plant blindness, through which humans or students tend to overlook or not acknowledge the presence and significance of plants. But right now, they will now prioritize on reconnecting students about plants and biodiversity.
So the next slides is all about photosynthesis as the engine of the biosphere. So bakit nga ba mahalaga, or why the photosynthesis matters? Una, it's the process that powers nearly all living systems. Ang photosynthesis kasi ay isa sa pinakamahalagang biological process. And dito, ito yung reason why life exists, and also photosynthesis provides food for the plants, as well as plants ay magiging food naman for other living organisms. It also, photosynthesis converts light energy to chemical energy that links physics, chemistry, and biology. Ang photosynthesis kasi, plants converts lights energy from the sun into chemical energy. And this process connects biology, chemistry, and physics. Kasi involved dito yung conversion ng solar radiation into biochemical energy. Kagaya nga sinabi ko kanina that yung photosynthesis, magpo-provide siya ng foods para sa plants, and yung plants magiging food naman siya para sa other living organism. Katulad ng food web. Ang food web, kunyari, yung sunlight, ipapasa niya yung energy niya sa plants, kagaya ng grass. And yung cow naman, kapag kinain niya yung grass na yun, syempre mapapasa din sa kanya yung energy. And for human naman, kapag kumuha siya ng milk sa cow, edi mapapasa ulit yung energy. And simply, from the sun, to plants, to animals, and to humans. And humans will get the chemical energy that they can use in their daily lives, such as singing, dancing, walking, eating, and running, and also doing household chores. However, many students find it abstract or technical because we can actually see yung actual process na nangyayari. Pero in reality, every breath that we intake and every meal that we eat is directly product ng photosynthesis. Next ay meron naman tayong dalawang process ng photosynthesis. Una dito yung light-dependent reaction and Calvin cycle. Yung una, light-dependent reaction ay nangyayari sa thylakoid membrane. Dito, yung chlorophyll, it captures the sunlight and then magkakaroon ng water split, also called as also called as photolysis. And kapag nag-split na yun, magre-release yun ngayon ng oxygen. And after that process, makakapag-produce yun ng product na ATP and ATPH. Sa next stage naman is the Calvin cycle that happens in the stomach. Dito, yung ATP and ATPH will use for carbon dioxide to fix into sugar. Para mas madaling maintindihan, di ba? Ito unang process. Magka-capture siya ng energy and i-store niya. Yun yung ATP and ATPH. Ngayon, sa kabilang process naman, gagamitin niya na yung stored na energy para makabuo or para makabuild ng sugar. Next naman is photosynthesis and the planet's global relevance niya. Una, drives the carbon cycle, reduce atmospheric carbon dioxide that will lead to moderate global temperature, produces oxygen for aerobic life, any imbalance affects climate change and ecosystem. Ang ibig sabihin lang nito that photosynthesis not only give energy, hindi lang siya nagpo-provide ng food para sa mga living organism, but also photosynthesis drive carbon cycle, kagaya ng it takes the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and convert it or release it as oxygen. And dahil dito, syempre, pwedeng makatulong ito para ma-regulate yung global temperature as well as ma-maintain yung balance of gases that are existing in our atmosphere. If we look naman into the negative side, di ba, mas nag-exist or mas matimbang yung mga scenario like deforestation or pollution, syempre, maapektuhan yung photosynthesis. Mas maraming carbon dioxide yung mag-e-exist sa atmosphere and that will lead, kung mas malala pa, ay mag-leads ito as climate change. Pero if we protect photosynthetic organisms, and that will also means that we are protecting our planet that we live in. Next naman is photosynthesis in modern world. Una, C3 versus C4 versus plants research helps scientists adapt crops to hot climate change and water scarcity. Yung mga scientists kasi ay pinag-aralan nila yung C3, C4 plants kung ano yung iba't ibang paraan nila para maka-adapt sa certain condition. Kagaya ng C3 plants, example lang yung corn, di ba, mas favorable siya or mas efficient siya sa hot climates. While plants naman, like cactus, they need to conserve water. And genetic engineering to improve photosynthetic efficiency will lead to more food production. Dito, scientists also use genetic engineering, yung pag-alter or pag-change ng DNA ng plants. And that means kapag syempre na-alter yung DNA nila, syempre mas mabilis silang lalaki, mas madami yung mapaprovide nilang food. And even though limited lang yung sunlight, yung carbon dioxide, and water, that means kapag nangyari yun, mas maraming crop and mas maraming people that can feed on. Then, renewable energy research inspired by artificial photosynthesis. Some scientists na rin, they develop artificial photosynthesis to produce energy from sunlight, kagaya ng ginagawa or kagaya ng natural na ginagawa ng plants. So the last slides for this topic is the bigger picture, why it is reformed. It sustains all food webs and oxygen supply, teaches us to live within our biological needs. Kagaya nga ng sinabi ni Walker 2012, that photosynthesis is the only way of providing us with our daily foods and so much else. It gives us foods, oxygens, and fuels, and it reminds us that all living things na nag-exist in our planet ay may pagkakaugnay-ugnay.
Students' misconception and their role in plant biology. Most students have the wrong impression about plants, how they grow, or how they use energy. These misconceptions came from the lack of connection on real-life situation or wrong understanding about the plant biology. According to John in 1997, without green plants, the earth would be a lifeless place. Ayon kay Sanders and Jenkins, mula sa libro nila ng plant biology, marami ang hindi nauunawaan kung paano konektado ang iba't ibang antas ng buhay mula sa molecular, cellular, and hanggang ecosystem. For example, student memorizes CO2 plus H2O forms glucose plus O2, but doesn't understand that light drives this reaction, like how solar panels need sunlight to generate power. Alam ang sagot pero hindi ang dahilan. Proceed of the common misconception. First one is the photosynthesis versus respiration. Students often view photosynthesis and respiration as opposite and unrelated processes, when in reality, these are interdependent. They are interdependent. Photosynthesis uses light energy, water, and carbon dioxide to produce glucose and oxygen, while respiration uses glucose and oxygen to produce energy in the form of ATP, and releases carbon dioxide to use for photosynthesis, in which shows they are interconnected or interdependent on each other. Next is the timing of respiration. Students may believe that plants only respire at night or when photosynthesis doesn't occur, which is wrong. Plants respire constantly day and night to provide energy for cellular functions. Habang ang photosynthesis naman nag-o-occur siya during daylight hours or when light energy is available. Ang pinakahuli ay ang role of light. Students may not fully understand the role of light when just energy for the plant, when in reality, light provides the light to drive photosynthesis, na nagko-convert ng light energy into chemical energy in the form of ATP and ATPH. So ano nga ba ang mga root causes ng mga misconceptions na to? Ang pinakauna ay ang prior intuitive beliefs. Ito yung mga paniniwala na hindi tama. Sunod naman ay ang lack of multi-level connections. Ito yung kakulangan sa connection sa iba't ibang konsepto. Pangatlo ay ang rote memorization and abstract concepts. Ito yung puro lang siya memorization, kulang sa pag-unawa. Panglima ay ang misinterpretation of equations. Yun nga, alam nila yung equation pero hindi naiintindihan. Next is the limited real-world application. Kakulangan sa aktwal na aplikasyon at pag-uugnay sa totoong buhay. And proceed naman tayo sa strategies to address these misconceptions. Ang pinakauna ay ang illicit prior knowledge. Dito, dapat muna natin alamin kung ano na nga ba ang nalalaman o iniisip nila tungkol sa topic. Next is use analogies and model. Dito naman, gumagamit tayo ng halimbawa at mga modelo para mas madali nilang maunawaan. Pangatlo ay ang interactive concept mapping. Dito ay pinapakita ang pagkakakonekta ng mga ideya. Pangapat ay ang real-world examples. Inuugnay natin siya sa tunay na sitwasyon. Hands-on activities. Dito, hinihikayat natin sila na matuto sa paggawa. Discussion with evidence, hikayatin natin sila ng talakayan. Ang pinakahuli ay ang active learning. Mas nagiging epektibo ang active learning kapag ang lahat ay nagiging bahagi. Ang pinakahuli ay ang constructivist learning approach. So ano nga ba ang constructivist learning approach? Dito, dinadagdagan ang mga natututo ang mga estudyante sa pamamagitan ng pagdagdag ng bagong kaalaman sa dating na nilang alam. Ang teacher's role ay hindi lamang ay tagapamagitan, hindi lamang tagapagturo. Ang pagkatuto ay nangyayari kapag aktibong nag-iisip, nagtatanong at nag-eksperimento ang bawat isa at hindi lamang nagme-memorize ng mga impormasyon. Even teachers face challenges in this in engaging plant science, which leads us to the next section.
So let's proceed in difficulties in teaching plant biology. So have you noticed that when biology is taught, animals seem to steal the spotlight, like dolphins, puppies, lions, etc. Pero asan nga ba ang mga plants? One reason is that plants are often viewed as static, slow, and hard to relate to. Unlike animals na they have faces and flashy movements na nakaka-grab ng attention natin. So, textbooks and lessons also tend to underrepresent the richness of plant life, focusing instead on dry experiments like starch tests na madidiscuss later ni Crystal or onion cells, without connecting them to bigger ideas like ecosystems, climate, or human impact. On top of that, many biology curricula are zoocentric, meaning animals dominate the visuals, examples, and even the stories. So, ang result nito, plant diversity and ecology get overshadowed, and students start to think that plants are boring or hindi nagiging interesado or hindi importante. Pero, ang plants are absolutely vital. They're at the base of every food chain. They regulate our climate and they hold to medical and ecological challenges. So, makikita natin dito sa picture na yung teacher nagtuturo ng biology and the students are not listening or they find biology is boring. Next is, in many teacher education programs, less than 10% of biology training covers plant-focused modules. This leads to low confidence and limited creativity in teaching about plants. So, teachers often repeat the same simple experiments, missing deeper plant scientifics, like photo respiration na binanggit na nga or na-discuss na nga nung botany, but nadidiscuss ulit sa fission. This is the solutions to revitalize plant teaching. Use local flora in lessons to build familiarity and cultural relevance. And encourage outdoor fieldwork or school gardens para mas maka-relate sila sa pinag-aaralan and mai-apply sa kanila. Let students observe growth and ecology firsthand. Next is integrate plant biology with social issues, which is food security, climate change, and biodiversity loss. Next is understanding plant awareness disparity. So, people undervalue plants due to cognitive and cultural biases. Like this picture. So, makikita natin na merong plant dito and dinadaan-daanan lang siya ng mga tao. Kasi wala silang flashy movements or faces na katulad sa animals or humans na nakaka-grab ng attention natin. So, ang tawag dito is attentional bias. The result is plants are often seen as background rather than living organisms central to life. And dito rin, makikita natin na mas nakaka-grab ng attention ang mga puppies kesa sa plants na dinadaan-dahanan lang. Yan, boss. So, there are several examples of major plant contributions that shape our world. First is photosynthesis, na na-discuss ni Erica kanina, which is the foundation of oxygen and food chains. Next is Mendel's P experiments, which is the birth of genetics. Medicinal plants, the sources of drugs like aspirin and quinine. And the last, plants drive major scientific discoveries that shape human life. So, dumako naman tayo sa cultural dimension. This encouraged indigenous and local knowledge on plants, linking science with heritage. So, indigenous communities around the world have deep plant knowledge passed down through generations. This includes medicinal uses, sustainable harvesting methods, cultural rituals tied to seasonal cycles or plant species. So, recognizing and integrating this knowledge enriches science education and fosters respect for both ecological wisdom and cultural heritage. Ayan. Wait. So, in short, fighting plant blindness isn't just about teaching biology. It's about creating a cultural that So, in short, fighting plant blindness isn't just about teaching biology. It's about creating a cultural So in short, fighting plant blindness isn't just about teaching biology. It's about creating a culture that values and protects the green world that sustains us all.
So, we apologize for the change of scenery because we are having technical difficulties. The TV here is not working, so we resolved it by using this laptop. So, I hope you can bear with us. We're now at the recommendation part of our topic. So, this helps us bring plant science back to life. So, first, it is recommended to rethink traditional experiments. So, classical activities such as starch test and bubbling fondue are valuable for engagement but have limitations and can cause misconceptions. So, first, let us define or explain what are the two old-fashioned experiments. So, first is the starch test. The main objective of this experiment is to test the presence of starch in leaves, and that light is important for photosynthesis. In order to conduct this, you need a leaf that is in complete darkness. Then you're going to boil it in water to stop the photosynthesis or to kill it. Then you're going to boil it again in ethanol through a hot water bath. So this is to strip off the chlorophyll, making it more visible. And then you're gonna rinse it and you lay the leaf flat on a watch glass or petri dish. Then you will put iodine on it. So after putting the iodine, it could either turn into bluish black, meaning that there's starch present on the leaf or in the leaf, and if there's no color change or where it remained brownish or yellow, then it means there's no starch. So why does this simple experiment have issues? So students tend to have misconception about this, such as iodine tests for photosynthesis, when in reality it just tests the presence of starch. They also believe that light directly makes starch, where in fact it only just provides the energy to make it. And speaking of starch, it does not make starch immediately. Starch and sugar are different. The byproduct of photosynthesis is sugar, which is a monosaccharide with a chemical formula of C6H12O6 and is used to make cellular processes, whereas starch is a storage polysaccharide. So it contains long chains of glucose. So if it's not used, then it will become starch. But if it's needed again, then it will be broken down back to glucose. And also, they tend to disregard the other factors like carbon dioxide, water, and chlorophyll, which also have important roles in photosynthesis. And they also thought that all parts of a plant can photosynthesize, including the non-green parts. They also expect that starch forms instantly after light exposure, and they assume that when there's no change in color, then there's no photosynthesis. So that is really wrong. Next is the bubbling pondweed experiment. So here, the main objective of this one is to test the amount or to see the production of oxygen in relation to light intensity. So in order to conduct this experiment, you need a pondweed, which can either be an Elodea or Columba, that is filled with water in a beaker, and you will also need a light source in the form of a lamp. So the control group will be this sample or this plant under complete darkness. Then you will count the amount of bubbles produced. So usually when it's dark, there's no bubbles produced. But when there is a light source that is 10 centimeters away, bubbles starts to form, and then you're going to count that. And also, if you put this lamp closer, then the more bubbles produced. So why does this have issues? So again, it also have misconceptions where students tend to confuse that a bubble is equivalent to a single oxygen molecule, which is not. The bubble is comprised of different gases like nitrogen, and it also varies in sizes. It only highlights light, which is not the only factor. Like the starch test, carbon dioxide, temperature, and chlorophyll also affect photosynthesis. More bubbles doesn't necessarily mean that it has a faster photosynthesis. So it's just only an estimate. And the experiment only shows oxygen release, not the full photosynthesis process. And not all aquatic plants have visible oxygen like pondweed. So this goes to show that this experiment is unreliable, is kind of bit confusing, and it omits discussion of carbon dioxide as a reactant. So what kind of experiments should we utilize in order to understand plant biology? So it is recommended to utilize improved practical approaches, so such as pH indicators and hydrogen carbonate, and also immobilized green algae or algal blooms. So these two experiments are quite similar. In this one, you will be needing a kind of plant like Elodea from before in water, and then you're going to put an indicator in it. If it's pH, it could either be phenol red or a hydrogen carbonate indicator. So you will also need a light source for this. So again, the control group is to place in complete darkness. So if it's dark, then respiration dominates. When the more respiration, it means that more carbon dioxide is produced. So if carbon dioxide is abundant, it makes the solution more acidic. Thus, will appear yellowish on the color gradient with a pH of 7.6. Whereas, if there is light or if it's exposed in light, then photosynthesis dominates. So meaning carbon dioxide is absorbed. And if there's no carbon dioxide, or if carbon dioxide was lessened, then it will be less acidic, making it basic, and it will make a more purplish or bluish appearance on the color gradient over here with the pH of 9.2. It also discusses compensation point, wherein the color will be red. It means that the carbon dioxide levels is the same with the atmosphere. So the pH of this one is 8.4. So the immobilized algal balls or green algae is another experiment that is quite similar here, where they utilize tiny algal cells that is made from Chlorella or Arseniodesmus, chopped in a small gel beads that are made from sodium alginate. So because of the encapsulation of the gel, the algal cells are not able to move. Thus the word immobilized. They can't move. So they again were put into separate containers similar to this one, and they're applied with a indicator. So similar premises. So if it's dark, then it will respire. If it will respire, then there's more carbon dioxide. If there's more carbon dioxide, then it will be more acidic and will be color yellow. If there is light, then it will photosynthesize, lessening the carbon dioxide and making it less acidic, so the color would be blue. So these two experiments are more accurate compared to the ones mentioned before, because in this one, the pH and hydrogen carbonate experiment demonstrate both photosynthesis and respiration, and also the compensation point. Whereas this one, the immobilized green algal balls, is reliable and is a reusable model. And there is a visualization wherein colors have meaning. It represents something, so it makes it more understandable. And it also adopts an inquiry-based learning project. So it's more engaging to students and more substantial compared to the ones earlier, which are incomplete and can sometimes be confusing. So next, we should also adopt narrative-based teaching strategies like historical vignettes and concept cartoons. So historical vignettes use historical experiments like the ones in John Baptist van Helmont. So, fun fact about him, he is a Flemish scientist who made the famous willow tree experiment. So, he wondered how plants gain mass. So, he planted a willow tree and took care of it for 3 to 5 years and weighs it. And he discovered that the weight of the plant increases, or it gets heavier, while the soil only a little bit. So he then made a conclusion that the plant's weight is due to water. Well, it is a theory that was disproved by other scientists, their descendants, like according to scientists like Priestley, Ebbinghaus, and Senebier, though water, not only the factor that contributes to plant weight is water and carbon dioxide, because carbon dioxide is used to make complex structures from stems to leaves to flowers. And of course, water also has an impact, but he forget to acknowledge carbon dioxide since he's not aware about that time. So yeah. So the importance of incorporating historical vignettes is that it enables students to not only know the definition of the about a certain concept like photosynthesis, but it also encourages them to understand the origins of it, how photosynthesis became this one, where it came from, and just like in history, where we acknowledge it, and it makes us appreciate the process more. And next is concept cartoons. So concept cartoons are basically fun illustration wherein characters have their own scientific ideas, where some of them are correct, some of them are not. So let's analyze this illustration. I hope you can see it. Okay, that's gonna move it closer. So so what is photosynthesis? That is the title. So the boy with the letter A says that only green plants make photosynthesis, while the B boy says that photosynthesis is the production of food by utilizing water, carbon dioxide, and sunlight. Sorry. Next, girl with the letter C is plants convert water and carbon dioxide into oxygen by means of photosynthesis. So, Randy, I wish to ask someone from the audience, but since this is a video recorded presentation, I will analyze it by my own. So, boy here, with the letter A, his statement is partly incorrect. Why? Because although chlorophyll, which makes the green pigment of a plant, is necessary, photosynthesis is not limited to green plants. So algae and some bacteria can also photosynthesize. Boy here, letter B, is correct because it explains the process accurately, where photosynthesis needs water and carbon dioxide and sunlight to make food. And last one, the girl with the letter C is incomplete because it suggests that oxygen is the main byproduct, where in fact the primary product is glucose and food, and oxygen is just a byproduct. I'm sorry, I need to repeat that. So girl with the letter C is incorrect or incomplete specifically because it suggests that oxygen is the main product, but the primary product is glucose or food, and oxygen is just a byproduct. So the main purpose of concept cartoons is that it enables students to use their critical thinking, and they're able to express their thoughts using the knowledge that they've learned, and it also engages them with other students who have opposing ideas and helps them understand the concept more because there is a situation where they can analyze what's happening. So let's move on to okay. So I've also included more recommendations or applications to improve teaching strategies in plant biology. So as someone who lives in a more modernized and innovative generation, it is beneficial or it is our advantage to utilize several applications to help us learn about plant biology more effectively. So, like first, using digital simulations or virtual labs and then augmented reality and 3D visualization helps us visualize tiny parts of a plant more closely because you do use microscopes but it only shows the evident parts of a plant or in a plant cell. Whereas this one, it helps us to visualize and to make abstract processes more tangible and engaging. So next is we connect lessons to real-world issues. So we all know that plant photosynthesize, so it takes in anthropogenic carbon dioxide, and without it, our atmosphere will be difficult for humans to survive in. So for example, the Amazon forest fire, we all know that the Amazon forest is one of the biggest forests in the whole world, and because of the forest fire, scientists concluded that it makes a great effect in terms of carbon concentration in the atmosphere. So it reinforces that we need to plant more and take care of nature so that more oxygen is produced, thus making the atmosphere healthier. So we are also encouraged to make data-driven inquiry using technology. So we use sensors or mobile apps to measure light, carbon dioxide, and temperature, and analyze it with digital tools like using Excel and Google Sheets. We can also promote collaborative and student-centered learning where we do experiments as a group, and we can also make the learning processes like a game, like using Kahoot, since friendly competition can motivate students to learn, and putting a fun aspect will make the learning experience less tough. We can also blend science with creativity and media, so it is a nice way to incorporate what they learn and also utilize their skills and talents, creating their own visual masterpieces for the others to see. And lastly, we can promote real-world sustainable actions like tree planting, and this is actually conducted last year where all student societies here in the College of Arts and Sciences, they had a tree planting activity in some of the places here in Etchage. So not only do we learn about photosynthesis, but also incorporating it for good is a surefire way to really make an impact to our environment and to our community. So, to conclude everything, big ideas approach wherein we relate different biological systems instead of isolating a single idea, plus student-centered learning wherein we prioritize more on how the student understands concepts instead of simply imparting knowledge, nourishing their minds, plus using practical experiments or application helps abolish or address misconceptions, especially concerning photosynthesis. So this extends to topics like ecosystems, respiration, genetics, and evolution. So though plant science is complex, school lessons should aim to inspire awe and understanding of plants' vital roles using hands-on activities, stories, visual tools, and other innovative applications to make learning meaningful. So these are our references, and thank you for listening to our humble and simple presentation. We hope you've learned a lot today. So that's it.